if you talk to virologists and epidemiologists that aren't captured, that don't have to deal with whatever Fauci and the NIH tells them what to say, and if you talk to those people, they're like, well, first of all, you should be telling people they have to lose weight. They have to lose weight. It was the number one comorbidity. It was a giant factor.
I think something like 75% of the people who were hospitalized or died, yes, were obese. But of course, in this country, we're so through the looking glass on the obesity issue that even mentioning it is some sort of a hate crime.
Right.
I mean, it is so Orwellian. And this is, again, a topic I've covered many times, and there is nothing that garners me more hate than this. No issue. No issue. You're just not allowed to talk about this. And it's preposterous because, first of all, if this is truly a life and death issue, we can't talk about the one thing that more than anything else is causing the death. But it is Orwellian. Terms like body positivity.
Yeah.
There is nothing positive health-wise.
Yeah.
Now, if you think it's beautiful, great. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But science is not.
No, it's not. And honestly, it's not even beauty. It's people trying to help people's feelings. They're trying to help your feelings.
No, there are people, we used to call them chubby chasers.
Oh, sure.
There are people who actually, and I'm sure there's more than a few. And I think it's also, look, the ideals of beauty change. I mean, back in the, 17th century, I mean, you can see the paintings.
Sure.
Especially when people were poorer, it was a sign of status to have fat on you.
Yeah.
Because you had food.
Yeah. More than enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does change, and it's also can be a cultural thing. It's also maybe when you grew up. I mean, when I was first masturbating, it was the era of Twiggy, the first waif model, and thin was in. To me, like the pie wagons of the 50s, like Marilyn Monroe, those hippie girls like the ones on Mad Men, the big redhead on Mad. That was like, ugh, that's my father's era. That's ugh. I couldn't raise an erection with a derrick looking at those girls. I liked and I kept that my whole life. I like that. I like tight and, what they called hard bodies in the 80s. That's not in style anymore. It's Kardashian, Jennifer Lopez made the big ass trendy, and that's what they like now. So it does change.
But there's a giant difference between Jennifer Lopez and a fat person. Like to say that like things are like that's always kind of been style. Like big hips and large breasts, it's genetic. There's a genetic inclination. Like men are attracted to that because women with wide hips they give birth easier.
I'm not attracted to that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, people are attracted to different things for sure, but it's like there's a genetic reason for it.
I mean, I agree that Jennifer Lopez is a beautiful woman. Amazing how she's continued her looks into the 50s.
She's like 51. She's still hot as the sun. It's crazy.
But there is no world in which I am attracted to an ass that big.
Wow.
That's just not my style.
I'm on the other team. I like it.
Oh, really?
I like it.
Yeah, well, you fit in more with good for you, Joe. You fit in with the kids today and your big ass loving friends.
Yeah,
but fat is fat,
fat.
And it's just not healthy. Even if you find it beautiful or sexy or whatever you want, it's just science. It's bad for literally every part of your health, from how you poop to your eyesight. There's nothing that obesity doesn't affect negatively.
You know who doesn't get any of that body positivity shit though is men. Nobody gives a fuck about men. If men are fat, you're just fat. That's like when James Corden tried that shit with you.
Yes.
It was such an obvious ploy. Oh, you're hurting my feelings,
yes.
Bill.
Oh, yes.
Fat shaming. First of all, that guy's fat from food. He's not like, my guy's got a genetic disorder. He's just, that guy's obviously not working out and living a good life, eating some nice food.
And
a little plump.
Yeah. And
fixable.
Interesting, and interesting. A year or so after he made his big crusade against me, he signed a big contract, I think, with Weight Watchers. He turned right around. But even Weight Watchers is out of style because now we've given up on the idea that obesity is something that can be contained by exercise and diet, it's now a disease. I mean, these new drugs they have.
Ozempic and things like that.
Ozempic.
Yeah.
I was reading about Ozempic. I didn't know this until recently. They have zero clue why it works. They know that it works, just not why. This would bother me a little, you know.
It should.
That if they're giving me something and they're like, hey, this new miracle pill, just take it. We're working on the reason why it might do this to you, but until then, just fuck it.
There's no biological free lunch either. I have friends that are on that stuff, and one friend who just got off of it because he was having some serious gastrointestinal issues that are apparently one of the side effects. There's no free lunch. If you're taking an injection that makes you less hungry, something's going on. That's probably not good.
Yes.
And you're also losing a lot of connective tissue, bone mass, and muscle mass. My good friend Peter Attia did a study on his patients. He's a doctor, did a study on patients that took Ozempic, and one of the things that they found is they lost weight, but they gained fat. They were actually had a higher percentage of body fat because they were primarily losing muscle tissue and connective tissue. They were losing so much of that even though they lost like 20 pounds, they actually went from like 15% body fat to maybe 20% body fat or whatever the number was.
But what I find the most alarming is the way, in just a matter of a few years, the group think that this is a disease now that cannot be controlled by what for 50, 100, a million years before this, it was the scientific consensus that, of course, you can control it with diet and exercise. Just in a couple of years, that went out the window. And you cannot find an article on the front page or in the op-ed page of the New York Times in the last couple of years that has any other belief than this one, that it is a disease, it is not within a person's control. So they're all in on Ozempic or whatever else because we certainly can't leave this to people themselves to control it. That's a giant sea change, and the way they sheep-like just go right in a row. No dissent. Not one person standing up in the paper of record to say, wait a second, this can't really be the case. I mean, 50 years ago, we looked like a completely different people. Why is it the case? In 50 years, did we evolve? In 50 years, human beings? Was cake not delicious in 1969? I think it was, and yet somehow people resisted it.